So, Eric, your work brings together instructional design, storytelling, and gamification, which those are elements that I love, especially the storytelling aspect. How do you decide when those creative elements genuinely support learning and behavior change rather than becoming just decoration?
That's a great question. And it's kind of tricky because, again, I don't want to get into the conversation as to why decoration matters, because it does,
Hmm.
especially when you have external learners. And decoration matters when you care about your brand, right? Because is a suit necessarily? Probably not. But you want to communicate a certain message with how something looks. But beyond that, in terms of how we do it, we have a very defined tactical process. And it's not always Uh, I don't have the most creative answer, but with every client, we start with an extensive training needs analysis. And typically, these clients, they're trying to change a certain type of performance or build a certain type of competency in terms of behavior. They have a financial metric they're trying to achieve. Some of them are trying to monetize content. And lastly, a lot of our clients are trying to deliver a certain type of brand experience. So once we understand their business goals in that context, we'll run through the next part of the training needs analysis where we break down, okay, great. What are the specific learning outcomes that we want to see, the behaviors that we're trying to shift? We have a document called an instructional alignment chart, which is essentially the curriculum outline for the course. And this is where we start to map out where we want to create some form of passive learning activity, right? For knowledge based, where are we trying to pass on knowledge and where are we trying to pass on legitimate practice? And then lastly, where do we want to see a shift in performance? So with our instructional alignment chart, we essentially break down a curriculum and assign it with an active learning activity or an assessment activity or some form of passive learning. And typically, that's where we'll start to decide, okay, great. What form of gamified element is actually going to move the needle in terms of performance? What type of story structure here would sell the why of this course? So it all happens in the instructional alignment chart process.
That's great. And do you find that branching scenarios really help? Does that help the learner when they get to choose like a path? So you start them off with a story and then you kind of let them choose that path, or do you find that a defined path is better for them in these types of when you're working with these clients?
I love the idea of a branching scenario. The big fear I have is they're just difficult to execute well, right?
Mm,
Because
right,
usually when you're thinking branching scenarios, there's just layers of storyline activities, and it's still a very direct and it's still a linear approach, right? Now maybe you had a very complex branching scenario planned and it's useful. I do like branching scenarios when they're executed well and they're actually intentional with practice. So
right,
if you're creating a branching scenario that is a very good simulation of practice of like what you're trying to do, but if honestly, if it's a branching scenario and then you're still telling people and if it's still a knowledge based course, you're better off just creating a short form of that, right? Creating some form of summarized content. So I love branching scenarios, but they have to be executed well and be tied to practice. But with that being said, there's just a world of opportunity with vibe coding right now, and we're
oh,
just getting
absolutely,
started. So
right.
I mean, before one of the things we recently built was this application that allows you to practice your customer service skills. So if you were to build a branching scenario, it would be built off some form of a multiple choice answer, and you would go down this path, and it wouldn't be fun, right? You would just be clicking, you'd be answering based off of the response, and you'd be going back and forth. But now with this chatbot we created, like you're dealing with an angry customer who missed their flight, and whatever you say, they're going to have a fresh answer for you, and they're going to talk to you like you're stupid because that's what
Right,
happens sometimes in customer service. And
exactly. Yeah,
it's just really weird how effective this tool is.
it
So
is. It's amazing. Yeah.